Here's my headline, 8:25 Sunday morning.
An Oregon teen is sailing alone across the Pacific as part of a dream to sail around the world.
Sailing from California to Hawaii alone, and I am slowly sinking. Yup. Okay.
That's Ollie Bergquist, an 18-year-old currently in the Pacific Ocean. He left California about 20 days ago, and he's headed here to Honolulu. He's been documenting his journey on social media, and in his latest post, he says he's slowly sinking. He's expected to make landfall at Hawaii Yacht Club around noon tomorrow, and the public is invited to a free community celebration to welcome him and share his inspiring story of courage, adventure, and determination. There will be music, local vendors, fellow sailors, and all-day activities.
While we're talking about sailors, as Hawaii prepares to honor those who served this Memorial Day weekend, one of the last survivors of the attack on Pearl Harbor is sharing his story.
My name is Freeman Johnson. I was at Pearl Harbor when it started.
At 106 years old, Freeman Johnson is believed to be the oldest living survivor of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Johnson was serving aboard the USS St. Louis during the December 7th, 1941 attack that brought the United States into World War II. He says only about 10 Pearl Harbor survivors are still alive today.